The soft, cool breeze of the Mediterranean whispers through the olive trees, and the sounds of distant waves crash gently along the rocky shores of ancient Greece. Picture yourself standing on the edges of a wide, sunlit plain, surrounded by rugged mountains that stretch up into the blue sky. The air is thick with the scent of wildflowers and the earthy aroma of stone and ancient dust. The land before you is both alive with energy and peaceful in its timeless stillness. This is the cradle of Western civilization, the birthplace of ideas that would shape the future of humanity. Ancient Greece was a place where the beauty of nature met the might of human ambition, where gods and mortals interacted, and where profound appreciation for physical excellence and intellectual pursuits took root. As we journey into the distant past, it's important to understand that ancient Greece was not just one city or one way of life. It was a collection of fiercely independent city-states, each with its own character and influence. From the proud warriors of Sparta to the intellectuals of Athens, these city-states shaped the world in ways we can still feel today. Greece itself was not unified under one ruler, but rather divided into numerous territories, each with its own customs, beliefs, and values. Yet, despite this diversity, one thing remained common across the Greek world: a shared reverence for the human body and mind, for pursuit of excellence, and for the celebration of achievement. The Olympic Games, as we know them today, have their roots deeply embedded in this ancient Greek soil. They were born out of the same culture that gave rise to philosophy, democracy, and monumental works of art and architecture. But the Olympics were not just a series of athletic contests. They were a sacred occasion, steeped in religious devotion, where athletes competed in honor of the gods. The Games were held in Olympia, a valley nestled in the western part of the Peloponnesian Peninsula, where the beauty of the landscape was matched only by the solemnity of the rituals that took place there. It's important to remember that, in ancient Greece, athleticism was more than just a way to stay fit or entertain. It was a reflection of a person's character, strength, and connection to the divine. Every muscle in an athlete's body, every drop of sweat, and every agonizing step taken in a race was a way of paying homage to the gods, particularly Zeus, the king of the gods. The Olympic Games, in their essence, were a manifestation of the Greeks' belief in the importance of balance between physical and mental strength, between competition and respect, and between humans and the divine forces that govern the world. As we begin this journey into the history of the Olympic Games, we're not just looking at a sporting event. We're opening a window into the heart of ancient Greece itself, a civilization that valued the pursuit of excellence in all its forms. Whether it was the beauty of a sculpted statue, the eloquence of a well-delivered speech, or the grace of a runner crossing the finish line, the Olympics were a moment in time when the entire Greek world came together in a shared celebration of human potential, a celebration that transcended borders and rivalries. The roots of the Olympic Games go back to the very dawn of Greek civilization, to a time when the lines between mythology and reality were blurred, and gods roamed the earth, influencing the fate of mortals. The first Games were not the grand, multi-event spectacle that we know today, but a modest gathering, a single foot race in honor of Zeus. This simple race, however, would grow into a tradition that spanned centuries, with athletes from across the Greek world coming to Olympia to compete for glory and honor. Each year, in the summer months, the Games would take place, and in those moments, the entire world seemed to pause. Cities would suspend wars, families would gather, and people would come together, all in reverence of the spirit of competition and unity. The early Olympics were not just about sports. They were, above all, a religious event. The athletes did not just compete for personal glory. They competed to honor the gods and to seek favor from them. The Games were held in the shadow of the grand temple of Zeus, a structure so massive and awe-inspiring that even the gods themselves seemed to stand in awe of it. It was here that the famous statue of Zeus, created by the sculptor Phidias, stood, a towering figure that was considered one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. The Olympic Games, therefore, were a confluence of sport, religion, and cultural pride. But beyond the religious rituals, there was something else that made the Olympics stand out in the ancient world: the sense of unity they fostered. While Greece was divided into many city-states, each with its own customs, rivalries, and ideals, the Olympics were one of the few events that brought the entire Greek world together. Athletes from all corners of Greece, whether they came from the powerful city-states of Athens and Sparta or the smaller, lesser-known towns, would converge at Olympia, laying aside their differences for the duration of the games. The sense of shared purpose and identity that these gatherings created was one of the unique features of the ancient Olympics. As we begin to peel back the layers of history, it becomes clear that the Olympics were more than just a series of athletic events. They were a reflection of the Greek world itself, complex, multifaceted, and ever-evolving. The Games mirrored the values of Greek society: the pursuit of excellence, the desire to honor the gods, and the celebration of human potential. They were a moment in time when Greeks of all walks of life could come together and witness the embodiment of their highest ideals: physical prowess, mental fortitude, and moral integrity. This introduction to ancient Greece and the Olympic Games sets the stage for a deeper exploration of the Games' origins, growth, and eventual decline. But as we move through history, let us carry with us a sense of awe and reverence that the ancient Greeks felt when they gathered in Olympia. Let us remember that the Olympics were not just about athletes competing for gold, silver, and bronze, but about a shared belief in something greater: the potential for humanity to rise above itself and achieve greatness in the eyes of the gods. As we delve into the story of the Olympic Games, we are, in essence, uncovering the spirit of ancient Greece, a spirit that continues to resonate in the modern world, even as we gather today to celebrate the Games. To understand the origins of the Olympic Games, we must first take a step back and immerse ourselves in the heart of Greek culture, the very essence that gave rise to these great contests of athleticism and honor. Ancient Greece, a land of rugged landscapes and flourishing cities, was not just a place where athletes competed, but where philosophy, art, and sport came together in a uniquely profound way. The Games were born from the cultural currents that ran through the civilization, where the mind and body were revered in equal measure, and where the pursuit of excellence was considered a moral imperative. The Greeks had a deep respect for the human form. Physical fitness was not just a means of survival or utility. It was a celebration of what it meant to be human. This appreciation for the body was rooted in the belief that the human form was a reflection of divine beauty. Sculptors like Phidias, Praxiteles, and Myron captured the human body in their marble works with such grace and precision that their statues seem almost alive. These masterpieces were not merely artistic achievements, but also spiritual reflections of the Greeks' ideal of physical perfection. In a sense, they were a way of honoring the gods by embodying their beauty and strength in human form. In ancient Greece, athletic prowess was seen as the ultimate expression of human potential. To the Greeks, athletes were not merely individuals competing for personal gain. They were representations of the very ideals that Greek society held dear: honor, discipline, and harmony. Greek athletes trained not only to become the best in their sport, but to embody the virtues of the gods themselves. Every race, every contest, every victory was a chance to demonstrate one's reverence for the divine, for the gods were believed to be watching. This belief permeated every aspect of Greek athleticism and, ultimately, the creation of the Olympic Games. Physical competitions in ancient Greece were not new when the Olympics first took place. In fact, athletic contests were a regular part of Greek life long before the Games began in Olympia. The Greeks held festivals, often in honor of the gods, where athletic events were featured prominently. These festivals were both local and regional, and varied greatly in scale and scope. The Panathenaic Games in Athens, for example, were held in honor of the goddess Athena, and they featured chariot races, foot races, and wrestling, along with music and poetry contests. Similar games were held in other parts of Greece, but none were as prestigious or sacred as those at Olympia. Olympia, a sanctuary devoted to Zeus, was a place that already held great religious significance before the Olympic Games were even conceived. The sanctuary itself was located in a fertile valley, surrounded by the imposing mountains of the Peloponnese, and was home to many temples and altars dedicated to the gods. The most famous of these was the Temple of Zeus, where the legendary statue of Zeus, created by the sculptor Phidias, stood as a testament to the grandeur of both the god and the artistic mastery of the Greeks. This sacred space, where gods and mortals were believed to interact, would become the focal point of what would later become the most famous athletic competition in history. The Greeks believed that athletic contests were not only a way to honor the gods, but also a way to establish moral order within society. These games were about more than just physical strength and endurance. They were about upholding virtues like fairness, respect, and integrity. In fact, athletes who cheated or broke the rules were punished severely, both by the gods and by the people. The idea of narrated, which can be translated as excellence or virtue, was central to the Greeks' understanding of competition. Athletes strived to achieve narrated not just for personal glory, but as a way of demonstrating their devotion to the gods and their commitment to the moral values that the gods embodied. This reverence for physical excellence extended beyond athletics to other aspects of Greek culture as well. Greek philosophy, which flourished in cities like Athens, was deeply concerned with questions of balance, harmony, and the pursuit of wisdom. Thinkers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle pondered the nature of the good life, the relationship between body and soul, and the role of virtue in human existence. They saw the body and mind as intimately connected and believed that both should be cultivated to achieve a balanced and harmonious life. This idea of balance was reflected in the athletic competitions as well, where the goal was not just to win, but to win with honor, demonstrating both physical prowess and mental fortitude. One of the most important principles that shaped Greek culture was the idea of kalokagathia, a concept that combined physical beauty with moral excellence. This idea suggested that the cultivation of the body was just as important as the cultivation of the mind. It was believed that by striving to develop both mind and body, one could attain a higher level of being, a state of narrated that was idealized by the Greeks. This concept is reflected in the way the Greeks viewed their athletes, not simply as competitors, but as embodiments of the highest ideals of human nature. Athletes were often celebrated as heroes, and their victories were seen as triumphs of human excellence. The Olympic Games themselves were born out of this deep cultural belief in the importance of physical and mental excellence. While other Greek cities had their own festivals and games, Olympia stood apart due to its religious significance. The games were not just athletic contests. They were part of a religious ritual dedicated to Zeus. They were a way to honor the gods and, by extension, the very ideals that the gods represented. The athletes who competed in the games were not just striving for victory. They were striving for divine approval, for a chance to prove their worthiness in the eyes of the gods. The first Olympic Games were held in 776 BCE, and they were initially quite simple. The event consisted of a single foot race, a short sprint that took place in a straight line down a dusty track. The winner of this race received a wreath of olive branches, a symbol of peace and prosperity. But the true reward was the glory and honor that came with victory. Over time, however, the games grew in both size and significance, expanding to include more events and attracting athletes from all corners of the Greek world. What began as a small religious festival would eventually become the most prestigious and revered athletic competition in the ancient world. As the games grew in importance, so did the significance of the athletes who participated in them. Victors in the Olympics were celebrated not only in their hometowns, but across the Greek world. Statues were erected in their honor, and their names were immortalized in inscriptions. The victors' wreath of olive branches became a symbol of glory and achievement, and their legacy would live on for centuries. The idea of honoring the gods through physical excellence, through the demonstration of narrated, was central to the Olympic Games, and to the Greek world as a whole. Thus, the foundations of the Olympic Games were laid not just through the history of the athletes who competed, but through the deeply embedded cultural and religious values of ancient Greece. The pursuit of excellence in body and mind, the reverence of the gods, and the quest for moral virtue all converge in Olympia, creating a spectacle that transcended mere competition. The Games were a manifestation of the highest ideals of Greek culture, and it is from this rich cultural heritage that the Olympics emerged, destined to become one of the most enduring legacies of the ancient world. In the world of ancient Greece, the line between the mortal and divine was often blurred. The gods of Greek mythology were not distant or detached entities. They were active participants in the lives of humans, playing a crucial role in shaping the destinies of cities, individuals, and entire nations. They were not mere symbols of abstract concepts or distant ideals, but were portrayed as living, breathing beings with personalities, desires, and flaws, much like humans themselves. The ancient Greeks believed that these gods and goddesses could directly influence their lives, their actions, and even their victories in competition. At the center of this divine pantheon stood the Olympian gods, the 12 principal deities who resided atop Mount Olympus. Zeus, the king of the gods, ruled over the heavens, the earth, and the sea, ensuring order and justice in the world. His wife, Hera, the goddess of marriage and family, was revered for her strength and wisdom. Poseidon, the god of the sea, held dominion over the oceans, while Hades, the god of the underworld, governed the realm of the dead. These gods, and others like Athena, Apollo, Artemis, and Hermes, each played a specific role in the lives of mortals, guiding their destinies with both benevolence and wrath. The gods were not just symbols of power or divine forces. They were deeply embedded in every aspect of Greek life, and this included athleticism. In fact, the Greeks believed that the physical prowess exhibited by athletes in the Olympic Games and other competitions was a reflection of the gods' favor. To be an athlete in ancient Greece was not just to strive for personal glory, but to honor the gods themselves. It was a way of participating in the divine order of things, proving one's worth in the eyes of the gods, and seeking their approval. Zeus, as the god of justice and order, was particularly revered in the context of the Olympics. The Olympic Games were held in his honor, and it was believed that his divine presence watched over the competitions. Athletes would compete not just for personal fame, but to prove their dedication to Zeus, demonstrating their physical excellence as an offering to him. The games themselves were part of a religious festival, and it was a belief that winning an event could signify that the gods were pleased with the athlete's devotion to their values that transcended mere physical prowess and reflected a deeper moral virtue. Zeus's role as the overseer of the Olympics is especially significant because it reflects the way in which the ancient Greeks saw their relationship with the gods. They didn't view the gods as distant, unreachable beings, but as active participants in their lives, influencing their fortunes in battle, their success in sports, and even the outcomes of everyday events. The gods were thought to intervene directly in human affairs, sometimes favoring those who were worthy and punishing those who had committed wrongs. This divine intervention was an essential part of Greek mythology and underscored the importance of seeking the gods' favor through actions that align with their ideals. Alongside Zeus, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, was another key figure in the athletic world. While Zeus represented strength and justice, Athena embodied wisdom, strategy, and fair play. Her influence extended not just to warriors, but also to athletes who believed that her favor could bring them success in their competitions. The Greeks valued the harmony between mind and body, and Athena's wisdom represented the perfect balance between physical excellence and intellectual prowess. In this sense, the Olympics were not just a celebration of raw physical strength, but of the harmony between reason, skill, and endurance, qualities embodied by Athena herself. Apollo, the god of music, poetry, and prophecy, also played a significant role in the athletic world. Though he was more closely associated with the arts, Apollo's influence over the Greeks was far-reaching, and athletes often invoked his name to gain inspiration and favor. His connection to the arts reflected the Greek belief in the unity of all human endeavors. In their eyes, athletic performance was not separate from the cultivation of the mind, music, or philosophy. It was a total expression of human potential, and Apollo's association with all forms of excellence, whether in art or athletics, reinforced this idea. As the games began to grow in importance, the connection between athletes and the gods became even more pronounced. Competitors would make offerings before each event, often dedicating their performances to a particular deity. In some cases, athletes would pray for divine favor, seeking victory not only for their own glory but as a means of honoring the gods. In this context, victory in the Olympics was never simply about winning. It was about achieving greatness in a way that was aligned with the divine will. To win was to receive the gods' blessing, while to lose could be seen as a sign of divine disfavor. However, not all divine interactions with mortals were benevolent. Greek mythology is filled with stories of gods who punish humans for their arrogance or failure to honor them properly. For instance, the myth of Niobe, who boasted of her superiority over Leto, the mother of Apollo and Artemis, serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of hubris, the excessive pride that often led mortals to challenge or disrespect the gods. The gods, in their wrath, would punish mortals who overstepped their bounds, often in dramatic and tragic ways. In this light, the Olympic Games were also a reminder of the delicate balance between pride and humility, between striving for greatness and recognizing one's place in the grand scheme of things. The myths surrounding the gods were not just stories of divine intervention, but also reflections of the Greeks' worldview. These myths illustrated the values of Greek society, from the importance of honor and respect for the gods to the concept of fate and destiny. In the context of the Olympic Games, these myths added a layer of spiritual and moral meaning to the athletic competitions. Winning in the games was not just a matter of being the fastest, strongest, or most skilled. It was a matter of aligning oneself with the divine forces that govern the world. Furthermore, these divine influences were not limited to just the victors. Athletes believed that the gods were present at every stage of the games, from the opening ceremonies to the final race. Their presence was felt not only in the successes of the athletes, but also in the rituals, sacrifices, and prayers that accompanied each event. These rituals, performed by priests and priestesses, were designed to honor the gods and to ensure that the games were conducted according to divine will. The act of competing was seen as an offering to the gods, a demonstration of respect and devotion to the divine order. As the Olympics grew in prestige, they became a reflection of the cultural values that had been shaped by the gods themselves. The athletes who competed in the games were viewed as representatives of these divine values, striving for excellence, seeking balance, and respecting the harmony between the physical and spiritual realms. The games were not just athletic contests. They were sacred occasions, imbued with the power and presence of the gods. In this way, mythology and the divine were at the heart of the Olympic Games. The Games were more than just a celebration of physical prowess. They were a celebration of the relationship between mortals and the divine, a recognition that human excellence was intimately tied to the favor and guidance of the gods. The influence of the gods on the Olympics was not just a spiritual or religious belief, but a central tenet of Greek culture, shaping not only the games themselves, but the very way the Greeks viewed the world and their place within it. The dawn of the Olympic Games begins in the quiet, sacred land of Olympia, a place where the serene beauty of nature intertwined with the reverence of the divine, and where the ambitions of the human spirit were first tested against the will of the gods. It is here, in the shadow of the great temple of Zeus, that the first Olympic Games took place, and with it, the world witnessed the birth of one of the most enduring traditions in human history. But the origins of these games were not merely about the celebration of physical strength. They were far more significant. A religious ritual, a sacred festival designed to honor the gods and to seek their favor through the demonstration of human excellence. Olympia itself was more than just a physical location. It was a sanctuary, a place set apart from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. Nestled in a valley, bordered by lush groves of olive trees, it was a space where the divine and mortal worlds were believed to meet. The ancient Greeks saw the land as sacred, where the earth itself had been touched by the gods. Olympia was dedicated to Zeus, the king of the gods, and it was here that the Olympic Games, originally a simple foot race, would grow into the grand festival we know today. This location was chosen not by chance, but because of its spiritual significance, a place where the gods themselves were thought to watch over the games and the athletes who competed in them. The exact origins of the Olympic Games remain somewhat shrouded in myth and legend, which only adds to their mystique. According to some sources, the games were founded by Heracles, the great hero of Greek mythology, as part of his labors. After completing his 12 labors, Heracles is said to have established the games to honor his father, Zeus. In this version of the story, the games were intended not only as a way to honor the gods, but also to celebrate the hero's own victory over the challenges that had been set before him. Whether this tale is true or simply a part of Greek mythology, it underscores a connection between heroism, divine favor, and the foundation of the Olympic Games. The first recorded Olympic Games, however, took place in 776 BCE, long after the mythological stories of Heracles. These early games were simple affairs, consisting of just a single event, a foot race known as a stadion, a sprint of roughly 200 meters. The stadion was the centerpiece of the games, and would remain the central event for many years. There were no grand spectacles, no elaborate ceremonies, just a race, a single contest where athletes competed for honor, glory, and the favor of Zeus. The winner of this race was awarded an olive wreath, symbolizing peace, victory, and divine approval. Yet, despite the simplicity of the first Olympic Games, they marked the beginning of something far larger, a festival that would become a symbol of unity and human achievement. What made the games truly sacred was the role they played in the religious life of the ancient Greeks. They were not just a competition of physical prowess. They were a religious observance. The Olympics were held in honor of Zeus, and it was believed that the gods themselves watched over the games. The ancient Greeks did not simply compete for personal gain. They competed as an offering to the divine, a demonstration of their devotion to the gods through physical excellence. In this way, the Olympic Games are part of a larger religious festival, which included sacrifices, prayers, and rituals that honored the gods. The athletes were not just trying to win for themselves, but were performing acts of worship, seeking the favor of Zeus and ensuring continued prosperity of the Greek people. The Games were held every 4 years in the summer, and this period of 4 years became known as an Olympiad. The time between each Olympiad was considered sacred and was used by the Greeks to measure the passage of time. The timing of the Games was not arbitrary. It was meant to honor the rhythm of the natural world and to align with the cycles of the earth. The 4-year interval was a reflection of the Greeks' deep connection to the natural order, where seasons and time were measured by the movement of the stars and the sun. In this sense, the Olympics were not just a cultural or athletic event, but a reflection of the broader, divine patterns that govern the cosmos. In the early years of the Olympic Games, the event remained relatively small. The first Games consisted of a single race, but over time, the Games grew in both size and significance. Other events were added to the competition, such as wrestling, boxing, and pentathlon, a 5-event contest that included running, long jump, discus, javelin, and wrestling. The Games expanded in scope, attracting athletes from all over Greece and even from the wider Mediterranean world. These additions transformed the Olympics from a small, local religious festival into a pan-Hellenic event, drawing participants from the many city-states that made up the Greek world. However, while the events themselves grew more numerous and complex, the religious significance of the Olympics remained central. Even as the Games became more elaborate, they retained their sacred character. Before each competition, athletes would offer sacrifices to Zeus and other gods. In some cases, entire animals were sacrificed, with the meat being shared among the participants and spectators. These offerings were not just about appeasing the gods. They were a way of acknowledging the divine role in human affairs, recognizing that the very ability to compete and excel in these games came from the gods themselves. It was not just the athlete's own strength or skill that was being tested, but their devotion to the divine order, their ability to embody the values that the gods themselves upheld. The Olympic Games also had a unique feature in the ancient Greek world, the Ekakeria, or Olympic truce. This was a sacred truce declared among the Greek city-states, where all conflicts and warfare would cease during the period of the Games. The truce was a reflection of the ideal of unity and peace that the Games symbolized. For a brief time, the Greek world came together, putting aside their rivalries and hostilities, in order to honor the gods through the spirit of friendly competition. This ideal of peace during the Olympics was not always followed perfectly. Wars and conflicts still occurred, but the truce was a powerful symbol of the potential for harmony amidst division. The significance of the Olympic Games extended far beyond the realm of athletics. They were a unifying force in a world that was often fragmented by war and competition. The Games were one of the few occasions when the Greek city-states could come together in a shared celebration of human excellence, a celebration that transcended borders and rivalries. The Games created a sense of common identity among the Greeks, one that was rooted not in political unity, but in a shared culture of values and beliefs. These values were reflected not only in the athletic contests, but in the way the Greeks saw themselves as a people, united in their reverence for the gods and their commitment to the pursuit of excellence. The sacred nature of the Olympics ensured that they remained a central part of Greek culture for centuries. They were not just a fleeting moment of entertainment, but a deeply ingrained tradition, one that was closely tied to the spiritual and moral values of the Greek world. The Games were a way of honoring the divine, celebrating the human spirit, and uniting the Greek people in a shared experience that transcended individual city-states and political divisions. As the centuries passed, the Games continued to evolve, growing larger and more elaborate. But the essence of the Olympics, their role as a sacred festival, a time to honor the gods and to celebrate human excellence, remained unchanged. From the first simple race in 776 BCE to the grand, multi-event spectacles of later centuries, the Olympics were always more than just a competition. They were a living expression of the values that lay at the heart of ancient Greek culture, a testament to the enduring power of the divine, and a reminder of the potential for greatness that resides within each of us. The Olympic Games, which began as a humble religious festival in the small sanctuary of Olympia, gradually transformed into the most prestigious athletic event in the ancient Greek world. What started as a single foot race to honor the gods grew into a multifaceted competition, attracting athletes from across the Greek world and fostering a sense of unity among a people divided by fierce rivalries and territorial disputes. The games evolved not only in their structure but in their significance, reflecting the changing nature of Greek society and its increasing devotion to the ideal of physical excellence. Initially, the Olympic Games were a local event, confined to the city-state of Elis, which governed the sanctuary of Olympia. The first Games, held in 776 BCE, featured only a single event, the stadion, a short foot race. This simplicity, however, did not diminish the importance of the Games. In fact, it was the sacredness of the event and the divine connection to Zeus that attracted competitors and spectators from surrounding areas. The Games were seen as a way to honor Zeus, to gain his favor, and to demonstrate one's athletic prowess in a sacred and public manner. But despite their religious importance, the Games remained a small affair, limited to the local region. Over the next several centuries, however, the Games began to evolve. The city-state of Olympia was not isolated from the rest of the Greek world. In fact, it was a cultural hub located at the crossroads of several important trade routes. As Greece expanded, both politically and economically, the Games began to attract athletes from other regions of Greece. Competitors from Sparta, Athens, Corinth, and other city-states began to make the journey to Olympia to participate in the event. The growing prestige of the Games reflected the increasing desire of city-states to demonstrate their superiority in athletic competition, as well as their devotion to the gods. The addition of new events to the Olympic Games marked a key moment in their evolution. While the stadion race remained the focal point of the competition, other events were gradually introduced. The pentathlon, for example, which included a series of 5 contests, long jump, javelin, discus, running, and wrestling, was added in 708 BCE. The introduction of the pentathlon was significant because it demonstrated a shift toward a more well-rounded idea of physical excellence. It was no longer enough to be fast or strong in one discipline. Athletes now had to excel across a variety of events, showcasing a balance of skills that reflected the Greeks' broader understanding of human potential. In addition to the pentathlon, other events, such as wrestling and boxing, were introduced. Wrestling, one of the most respected events in ancient Greece, emphasized both physical strength and technical skill, as it required athletes to use strategy as well as brute force. Boxing, on the other hand, was a more brutal contest, often fought without the protective gloves and gear we associate with modern combat sports. These events were not just tests of physical endurance, but also of mental resilience. To succeed in these events, athletes had to embody the Greek ideals of perseverance and courage, enduring not only physical pain, but also the pressure of competition. By the time the Games reached their height in the 5th century BCE, the number of events had expanded significantly. The Games had grown to include chariot races, a contest that reflected the Greeks' love of spectacle and grandeur. Chariot races were particularly popular among the wealthy, who could afford the expense of maintaining horses and chariots. These races added a new dimension to the Games, bringing an element of strategy, wealth, and status, alongside physical strength and skill. Chariot racing, with its dangerous and thrilling nature, also highlighted the Greeks' fascination with a fine line between life and death, and the glory that could be achieved through overcoming peril. At the same time, the growing complexity of the Games mirrored the growing complexity of Greek society itself. In the early years, the Olympics had been a simple religious event, but as Greek city-states became more powerful and interconnected, the Games became a symbol of the Greek world as a whole. The Olympic Games began to represent more than just an individual's victory. They became a way for city-states to assert their dominance, to demonstrate their wealth and military prowess, and to gain recognition in the eyes of their peers. Victories in the Olympic Games were seen as evidence of a city-state's strength and superiority. The winner of an event not only gained personal glory, but also brought honor to their city-state, further elevating the importance of the Games. The Games also played a significant role in promoting the idea of Greek unity. Although Greece was divided into numerous independent city-states, each with its own government, laws, and customs, the Olympics provided a rare opportunity for the Greeks to come together as a unified people. The Games were held every 4 years, and during that time, a temporary truce was declared among the warring city-states. This truce, known as the Ekakeria, ensure that athletes and spectators could travel safely to Olympia, regardless of any ongoing conflicts. The Olympics, therefore, were a symbol of the potential for peace and unity in a world otherwise marked by rivalry and division. The truce was not always respected, as political and military tensions sometimes led to violence even during the Games. However, the idea of a unified Greek identity, even if only temporarily realized through truce, was a powerful force. The Olympics allowed the Greeks to put aside their differences, if only for a short time, and to focus on their shared cultural values. In this sense, the Games were more than just a sporting event. They were a way of expressing Greek identity and pride, a celebration of the values that united the Greek people across their many city-states. As the Games grew in prestige and importance, so too did the rituals and ceremonies that accompanied them. The athletes, who initially competed in a simple foot race, now participated in elaborate religious rituals. Before each event, athletes would dedicate themselves to the gods, making offerings and sacrifices to seek divine favor. Victors were not merely celebrated for their athleticism. They were honored as heroes, their names inscribed in marble and their statues erected in their hometowns. The olive wreath, awarded to the winners, became a symbol not just of victory, but of divine approval, representing the favor of the gods and the ideals of Greek society. By the 5th century BCE, the Olympics had grown into a pan-Hellenic event, drawing athletes from all parts of the Greek world and beyond. It was during this time that the Olympics reached their peak, becoming a grand spectacle of athleticism, religious devotion, and cultural pride. The Games had evolved from a simple local festival into an event of great significance, attracting spectators from every corner of the Greek world. The Olympics were no longer just a celebration of athletic excellence. They had become a powerful symbol of Greek unity, identity, and cultural superiority. In the centuries that followed, the Games would continue to evolve, albeit under different circumstances. The influence of the Olympics would spread beyond the Greek world, inspiring similar festivals in other parts of the Mediterranean. The legacy of the ancient Olympic Games, born in the simple contest of Olympia, would eventually live on in the modern world, serving as a model for the international athletic competitions we know today. In ancient Greece, the role of the athlete transcended mere physical competition. To the Greeks, athletes were not just participants in a contest, but embodiment of the ideal human condition, a harmonious balance between mind, body, and spirit. The pursuit of athletic excellence was considered a noble endeavor, deeply tied to the values of honor, discipline, and respect for the gods. Training for the Olympic Games was not just about preparing for a race or contest. It was about undergoing a spiritual and moral transformation, striving to reach the highest ideals of Greek society. For the ancient Greeks, the concept of great excellence was central to the athletic experience. Arete was the belief that one could achieve greatness in both body and mind, and that physical prowess was intrinsically linked to moral virtue. Athletes who competed in the Olympics were expected to embody this ideal. Their participation in the Games was not just about winning. It was about representing the Greek values of strength, endurance, and discipline. To compete was to honor the gods, and to achieve victory was to gain divine approval. The preparation for the Olympic Games was a rigorous and highly disciplined process. Athletes were not simply born with innate talent. They had to work tirelessly to hone their skills. Training began at an early age and was typically conducted under the supervision of a pedo tribe, a trainer who was responsible for guiding the athlete's physical and mental development. The pedo tribe was not merely a coach in a modern sense. They were also educators, teaching their students the importance of discipline, focus, and respect for the ancient ideals of Greek athleticism. The primary goal of the athlete's training was to perfect the body and mind. Athletes would engage in various exercises to build strength, agility, and endurance. The training often took place in the gymnasium, a public space where both boys and men could exercise and socialize. The gymnasium was not only a place of physical training, but a symbol of the Greek commitment to the development of the whole person. Here, athletes would practice their running, wrestling, throwing, and other skills, often under the watchful eye of the pedo tribe. The physical regimen was demanding. Runners would train for months in advance, perfecting their sprinting technique and building their stamina for the race. Wrestlers and boxers would engage in daily combat training, learning to control their bodies and minds in the heat of competition. Discus throwers and javelin throwers would focus on developing precision, power, and consistency in their throws. The pentathlon, which included 5 events, running, long jump, discus, javelin, and wrestling, required athletes to train across multiple disciplines, emphasizing well-rounded physical ability. It was not enough to be exceptional in one event. The athlete had to excel across the entire spectrum of athletic pursuits. The training itself was intense and often grueling. The Greeks believed that the body had to be pushed to its limits in order to achieve air rate. In this sense, the pursuit of excellence was as much about mental toughness as it was about physical capability. Athletes were expected to endure pain and fatigue, overcoming physical discomfort in pursuit of their goals. This spirit of perseverance was an essential part of Greek athleticism. The ancient Greeks admired not just victory, but the ability to endure hardship, to press on even in the face of adversity. The athlete who could conquer not just his opponents, but his own weaknesses was the one who earned the respect and admiration of the Greek world. Diet and lifestyle were also important aspects of an athlete's training. It was believed that the food an athlete consumed had a direct impact on their performance, and many athletes followed specific diets designed to enhance their strength and endurance. These diets were often rich in foods that promoted muscle growth and energy, including meat, barley, and wine. While the Greeks did not have the sophisticated nutritional science that we have today, they understood the importance of maintaining a strong, healthy body. In fact, many athletes also participated in other forms of physical and mental preparation, such as massage and bathing, to improve circulation and help their muscles recover after intense training. While physical training was essential, the mental preparation was just as critical. The Greeks believed that an athlete's mindset played a crucial role in their performance. To compete in the Olympics, athletes had to be mentally focused, able to withstand the pressure of competition, and confident in their abilities. In ancient Greece, the idea of sophrosyne, self-control, and balance was a key component of mental discipline. Athletes were taught to remain calm under pressure, to avoid distractions, and to stay centered in their pursuit of victory. The ability to maintain composure in the face of both triumph and defeat was seen as a reflection of the athlete's true character. The emphasis on mental discipline was further reinforced by the religious context of the games. Athletes understood that they were competing not just for personal glory, but as an offering to the gods. Before each event, athletes would make sacrifices to Zeus, seeking his favor and guidance. The Greeks believed that the gods were watching over the games, and that success in the competition was a sign of divine approval. This belief placed great spiritual significance on the athlete's performance. To win was not just to defeat an opponent. It was to be chosen by the gods, to prove oneself worthy of their favor. In addition to personal training, athletes were also expected to maintain a high level of ethical conduct. Cheating, dishonesty, or breaking the rules was considered a great dishonor, and the consequences could be severe. Athletes who were caught cheating were publicly humiliated, and their names were often removed from the records of the games. The integrity of the competition was paramount, and it was believed that the gods would punish those who sought to gain victory through deceit or unethical behavior. In this way, the Olympic Games were not only a physical contest but a moral one, where athletes were expected to compete with honor and respect for the rules. The dedication to excellence and the pursuit of perfection were central to the ancient Greek view of the athlete. To be an athlete in ancient Greece was to commit oneself fully to the ideals of a rate, to undergo a process of transformation that involved both physical and moral development. Athletes were not just training their bodies, they were training their minds and souls. They were striving to embody the highest ideals of Greek culture and society, to represent the divine will in human form, and to achieve greatness in the eyes of the gods. Ultimately, the role of the athlete in ancient Greece was more than just that of a competitor. Athletes were seen as heroes, their bodies and actions a reflection of the virtues that the Greeks held dear. Their victories in the Olympic Games were not just personal triumphs. They were victories for the Greek way of life, for the ideals of honor, discipline, and divine favor. Athletes who succeeded in the Games were immortalized in statues and inscriptions, their names celebrated for generations to come. Their achievements were not just a testament to their physical prowess, but to the values they embodied: the pursuit of excellence, the triumph of the human spirit, and the ever-present hope of divine approval. In the world of ancient Greece, where city-states were frequently embroiled in bitter warfare and rivalry, the concept of peace, however fleeting, was an ideal that many believed to be achieved through the sacred institution of the Olympic Games. This vision was brought to life in the form of the Ekakeria, or Olympic truce, a period during which all hostilities between the Greek city-states were suspended in honor of the Games. This truce was not only a practical measure to ensure the safe travel of athletes and spectators, but also a powerful symbol of potential for unity amidst division, a rare moment when the Greek world, fractured by centuries of competition and conflict, could come together in a spirit of shared values. The idea of the Ekakeria was rooted in the deeply held religious beliefs of the Greeks. The Olympic Games were a religious festival dedicated to Zeus, and it was believed that no conflict could be allowed to interfere with the sacred occasion. In the eyes of the Greeks, the Games were a divine event, and the gods, especially Zeus, were thought to be watching over the proceedings. As a result, it was seen as both a moral and religious imperative to cease hostilities during the Games, as to do otherwise would be to disrespect the gods. It was a time when war could be suspended, not because of political negotiations or alliances, but because of a shared reverence for the divine. The Ekakeria was not a mere suggestion. It was a formalized agreement that was made binding on all participating city-states. The truce was announced in advance of the Games, and it was declared that all military action would cease for the duration of the festival. The truce extended not only to the athletes, but to anyone traveling to Olympia to attend or participate in the Games. This meant that soldiers, politicians, and other citizens of the Greek city-states were also bound by the truce, ensuring that they could travel safely to the sacred site. The Ekakeria was not just a practical necessity for the smooth operation of the Games. It was a reflection of profound importance of the event and the belief that the gods would not tolerate violence during this sacred period. The suspension of warfare during the Olympics was significant not only for its religious and symbolic importance, but also for its practical impact. In a world where war was a constant and often deadly reality, the Ekakeria provided a rare moment of respite. It was a chance for city-states to lay down their arms, albeit temporarily, and to focus on something other than military conquest. For the duration of the truce, athletes and spectators could travel, without fear of being caught up in the violence that often defined the Greek world. It was a moment of peace, if only for a few weeks, in a time when peace was the exception, not the rule. Despite the lofty ideals behind the Ekakeria, the truce was not always respected in practice. The ancient Greeks were no strangers to political intrigue, and there were times when the truce was violated, often for strategic reasons. During periods of particularly intense conflict, some city-states might choose to ignore the truce if they felt that military action was more pressing than the sacred nature of the Games. However, such violations were seen as deeply disrespectful to the gods, and they carried severe consequences. Not only was the offending city-state likely to face divine retribution, but the breach of the truce also risked alienating the broader Greek world. Since the Games were a pan-Hellenic event, the truce was an important part of maintaining unity and cooperation between the city-states. To break it was to risk damaging the delicate relationships that the Olympics helped to foster. The Olympics provided a unique opportunity for diplomacy, and the Ekakeria played a key role in this. The truce allowed representatives from different city-states to meet, speak, and negotiate in an atmosphere free from the tension of war. While the Games themselves were a competition, they also provided a rare occasion for a peaceful exchange. Athletes and citizens from all corners of Greece could gather in Olympia, interact, and celebrate their shared cultural heritage. In a sense, the Olympics became a venue for the softening of hostilities and the building of diplomatic ties, albeit in a context that was primarily religious and cultural. Over time, the idea of the Ekakeria gained broader significance. While initially the truce was tied directly to the Games, it came to represent a broader ideal, that, for a brief time, even the fiercest enemies could pause and come together in mutual respect for the gods and the ideals of Greek society. The truce was a reminder of potential for cooperation amidst the violence of the ancient world. It was a beacon of hope, showing that even in a society that glorified war, there was space for peace, however temporary. The suspension of hostilities was a recognition of the higher values that the Games represented: excellence, honor, respect, and divine favor, and the truce stood as a testament to the enduring power of these ideals. The Ekakeria was not simply about stopping the war for a few days. It was a profound reminder that the Games, at their core, were about more than just athletic competition. The The suspension of warfare highlighted the sacred, unifying nature of the games, reinforcing belief that the pursuit of excellence in the athletic arena was something that transcended the daily struggles of Greek life. The games were not just a time for physical contests, but a time for spiritual reflection, for the acknowledgement that all Greeks, regardless of their city-state, were united in their reverence for the gods and their shared cultural values. Interestingly, while the Ekakeria was enforced during the Olympic Games, its reach was not limited to Olympia alone. The ideals of the truce extended to other Pan-Hellenic festivals as well, including the Pythian, Nemean, and Isthmian Games. These festivals, which were also held in honor of the gods, were inspired by the Olympic Games and followed similar traditions. The concept of the truce was thus extended across the wider Greek world, influencing how other religious festivals were conducted. The Olympic Games, however, remained the most prestigious and widely recognized event, and the Ekakeria carried the greatest weight in terms of both its religious and cultural significance. As the centuries passed, the Ekakeria became an enduring symbol of the Greek commitment to unity and peace. While the truce was not always perfectly observed, it continued to hold deep cultural resonance throughout the history of the Games. It was a reminder of the shared identity of the Greek people who, despite their political differences and frequent warfare, could come together for the greater good of honoring the gods and celebrating human achievement. The Ekakeria became a symbol of what was possible when the Greek world chose to prioritize something greater than war, a vision of unity, however brief, that allowed for pursuit of excellence in a context free from the divisiveness of conflict. The legacy of the Olympic truce continues to this day, as the modern Olympic Games maintain the tradition of calling for a ceasefire during the competition. Although the original truce was tied to religious observance and the will of the gods, the modern Olympic truce seeks to promote peace through sport and diplomacy, echoing the ancient Greeks' belief in the power of shared ideals to bring about a temporary moment of harmony in a divided world. The truce, once a sacred religious agreement, now serves as a symbol of the potential for unity and cooperation through the universal language of sport. In the ancient Olympic Games, women were notably excluded from direct participation, a fact that has sparked considerable discussion about gender roles in ancient Greek society. The Games, which celebrated physical prowess and excellence, were deeply rooted in Greek ideals of masculinity, and the competition was seen as a space reserved for male athletes. However, despite this exclusion from the athletic events themselves, women still had a significant presence at the Games, though it was largely indirect, and their involvement was often defined by their relationship to the religious aspect of the event. The ancient Greeks, particularly in the context of their athletic competitions, had very clear and rigid ideas about gender. Men were expected to compete in public displays of strength and skill, while women were largely confined to the private sphere. The Olympic Games were primarily a celebration of male virtue, narrated, which was associated with qualities such as strength, honor, and physical excellence. Women, in contrast, were traditionally seen as physically weaker and, in many respects, were excluded from activities that celebrated physical feats. The Olympian Games reflected the broader societal belief that public life, including the most prestigious athletic contests, was a male domain. Women were not only barred from participating in the actual athletic competitions, but they were also prohibited from attending the Games as spectators. The penalty for any woman found at the Games was severe. She was said to be thrown off the cliffs of Mount Taipan, a stark reminder of the gender restrictions of the time. This exclusion was based on a belief that the presence of women would somehow disrupt the sanctity and purity of the event. The Games, being religious in nature, were seen as a male-dominated space of worship and celebration, and women were excluded from it in large part because they were perceived as detracting from the sacredness of the occasion. However, while women were excluded from participating as athletes and spectators, they were not entirely absent from the religious and ceremonial aspects of the Games. One of the most important roles women held in connection with the Olympics was through their participation in the religious rituals that surrounded the event. These rituals were essential to the overall success and sanctity of the Games, as they were meant to appease the gods, especially Zeus, and ensure the athlete's success. The sacrifices, prayers, and ceremonies that were conducted at Olympia were often performed by female priestesses, particularly the priestess of Demeter. The priestess of Demeter was an important religious figure at Olympia. She had the special responsibility of overseeing the sacred rites that were performed before and during the Games. The goddess Demeter the goddess of agriculture and fertility, was an essential deity in the Greek pantheon, and her role in the games was central. The priestess of Demeter would offer sacrifices to the gods and ensure that the divine favor of Zeus and other Olympian gods was bestowed upon the athletes. In this sense, women had an important, albeit indirect, role in ensuring the success and sanctity of the games. In addition to the priestess of Demeter, there was also the role of women in the broader religious context of the games. For instance, unmarried women were involved in the torch-bearing processions and other religious events that took place in the lead-up to the games. These ceremonies, while separate from the athletic events themselves, were integral to the overall experience of the Olympics, and women played an essential part in making sure the religious aspect of the games were properly observed. The torch processions, in particular, were a significant part of the Olympics, and women, though not competing or spectating, had the honor of participating in these important rituals. Although women could not compete directly in the Olympic Games, they were permitted to compete in other athletic events, most notably the Heraean Games, which were dedicated to the goddess Hera. These games, held at Olympia in honor of Hera, were a female-only event that allowed women to engage in athletic competition. The Heraean Games were held every 4 years, just like the Olympic Games, but the events were scaled down and less elaborate. The competition consisted of foot races, which were held in a stadium smaller than the one used for the men's races. Despite this opportunity for women to compete, the Heraean Games never attained the same prestige as the male-dominated Olympics, reflecting the broader societal perception that women's athleticism was less important than that of men. The exclusion of women from the Olympics, while rooted in the cultural and religious norms of ancient Greece, also reflected broader societal attitudes about gender and power. In Greek society, women were generally expected to maintain roles within the home, managing domestic affairs, and raising children. The idea of women participating in competitive athleticism, especially in the public and religious sphere, was viewed as contrary to these prescribed roles. In fact, the Olympic Games, as a reflection of the values of Greek masculinity, represented a space where the ideals of male strength, courage, and virtue were celebrated. Women's physical strength, on the other hand, was often regarded as unseemly and disruptive to the natural order of gender roles. Despite these restrictions, some women were able to gain recognition for their achievements in connection with the Olympic Games. The most famous example is that of Calliopetra, a woman from Rhodes, who, according to legend, disguised herself as a man to watch her son compete in the games. When her son won, Calliopetra could not contain her excitement and revealed her true identity. As a result, she was arrested, but her actions were later celebrated as an example of a mother's devotion to her son. The story of Calliopetra, while possibly exaggerated, highlights the occasional defiance of gender norms and the ways in which women could sometimes maneuver within the strict boundaries set by ancient Greek society. Despite their exclusion from the primary events of the Olympics, the role of women in the broader religious and cultural life of ancient Greece should not be underestimated. Their involvement in the Heraean Games as priestesses and in other religious rituals around the Olympic Games reveals the complexity of women's roles in a society that valued athleticism, physicality, and religious devotion. Women were not passive in their relationships to the Olympics. They played important roles behind the scenes, contributing to the sanctity and success of the event in ways that were recognized, though often overshadowed by the more visible male athletes. Furthermore, the women's exclusion from the Olympics serves as a reminder of the limitations of ancient Greek notions of arete, the Greek ideal of excellence. The Games, as a male-dominated space, reinforced the belief that athletic excellence was an exclusively male pursuit, tied to the cultural ideals of strength and masculinity. Yet, the very fact that women were involved in the religious aspect of the Games, even if indirectly, speaks to the possibility that their roles in society were more complex than their exclusion from the athletic contest might suggest. It is a reminder that ancient Greek society, while deeply patriarchal, also contained moments of defiance and the possibility for women to carve out a place for themselves within a highly structured world. In the modern era, the legacy of women's exclusion from the Olympic Games has been reversed. Women are now allowed to participate in the Olympic Games, and their inclusion has added new dimensions to the competition, expanding the scope of athletic achievement and challenging traditional gender norms. The struggles of women in ancient Greece, however, continue to echo in the history of the Games, reminding us that the path to equality in sport was long and fraught with cultural resistance. Yet, as we look back at the ancient Olympic Games, we can also celebrate the ways in which women, even in a society that largely excluded them, found ways to be involved in the sacred rituals and play a role in the development of one of the most enduring traditions in human history. Greek mythology and the Olympic Games were deeply intertwined, with the gods and mythical figures playing a central role in shaping the very nature of the competition. The Games were not merely athletic contests. They were a sacred religious event, held in honor of Zeus and the other gods of the Greek pantheon. The mythology surrounding the Games gave them a sense of divine importance and a deeper meaning that transcended mere physical achievement. In many ways, the Olympic Games were seen as an offering to the gods, a ritualized way of demonstrating human excellence in hopes of gaining their favor. At the heart of the Olympic Games was Zeus, the king of the gods, who was believed to have been honored with the first competition in Olympia. According to myth, the Games were established as a way to honor Zeus's power and celebrate his divine qualities. Zeus was the god of the sky, thunder, and justice, and his presence at Olympia was symbolic of the lofty ideals of strength, power, and fairness. In fact, the central feature of the Olympic Games, the Olympic truce or ekakyria, which called for a cessation of warfare during the Games, was rooted in Zeus's domain as a god of justice and order. His association with peace and the notion of harmonious order was reflected in the truce, which allowed Greek city-states to temporarily lay down their arms and come together for a celebration of human achievement. The mythology surrounding the foundation of the Olympic Games also reflects the significance of competition in Greek society. According to legend, the Games were established by Heracles, the great hero and demigod, after he completed his 12 labors. One of his labors involved cleaning the Augean stables, a task that seemed impossible to accomplish. Upon successfully completing the labor, Heracles was rewarded by Zeus with the establishment of the Olympic Games. This myth underscores a belief that heroism and divine favor were tied to the physical prowess displayed by mortals. Heracles, known for his immense strength and endurance, epitomized the qualities that were celebrated at the Games. The very foundation of the Olympic Games was thus rooted in a myth that connected athletic excellence with the divine, reinforcing the idea that the competition was about more than just human achievement. It was about demonstrating one's worthiness in the eyes of the gods. The myth of Heracles also highlights the connection between the Olympic Games and the hero's journey, a narrative that is central to much of Greek mythology. Heroes like Heracles, Achilles, and Odysseus were celebrated for their physical strength, endurance, and bravery, qualities that were highly valued in the context of the Games. These heroes became the archetypes against which athletes measured themselves. Just as Heracles performed great feats of strength and courage, Olympic athletes were expected to prove their worth through their physical prowess, striving to achieve the highest ideals of human excellence. Greek mythology also played a crucial role in the way athletes and spectators understood victory. Victors in the Olympic Games were not simply winners of competition. They were seen as having been chosen by the gods. The ultimate prize for an Olympic champion was the olive wreath, which was a symbol of divine favor and glory. This wreath was made from the sacred olive trees at Olympia, which were said to have been planted by the goddess Athena. The olive tree, in Greek mythology, was a symbol of peace, prosperity, and wisdom, and the wreath represented both the triumph of the individual athlete and the divine blessing they received for their victory. The victor's achievement was seen as a reflection of their relationship with the gods and their embodiment of the ideals of arete or excellence. The olive wreath also had mythological significance. It was believed that the trees from which the wreaths were cut were sacred to Athena, the goddess of wisdom and warfare. According to myth, the olive tree had been a gift from Athena to the city of Athens, and its cultivation and use in the Olympic Games emphasized the connection between wisdom, strength, and divine favor. This symbolism was not lost on the ancient Greeks, who viewed the Olympic Games as more than just a test of physical strength. They saw them as a spiritual and cultural event that celebrated the harmony between human effort and divine will. In addition to Zeus and Heracles, other figures from Greek mythology influenced the Games in subtle yet significant ways. For instance, the spirit of competition and rivalry that was central to the Games was rooted in the myth of the Titanomachy, the battle between the Olympian gods and the Titans. The gods' victory over the Titans in this myth was symbolic of the triumph of order, civilization, and the divine over chaos and disorder. This mythology mirrored the competitive spirit of the games, where individual athletes, like the gods, competed for honor and glory, each striving to prove themselves superior to their rivals. Furthermore, the concept of the athlete as a hero was central to the game's mythology. In Greek myths, heroes were often depicted as engaging in physical contests that tested their strength, endurance, and courage. These contests were symbolic of the broader human struggle for honor and immortality. In many ways, the Olympic athlete mirrored the hero of myth, fighting not only for personal glory, but also for a place in the eternal narrative of Greek culture. The victorious athlete, like the hero, was immortalized in song, sculpture, and story, their name etched into history as a testament to their greatness. The connection between the games and mythology was further reinforced by the sacred rituals that accompanied the event. Before the competitions began, athletes and spectators would offer sacrifices to the gods, particularly to Zeus, in hopes of receiving divine favor. These rituals were not merely ceremonial. They were integral to the game's religious significance. The Greeks believed that the gods, especially Zeus, watched over the games, and that success in competition was a sign of divine approval. The role of the gods in the Olympic Games was not just symbolic. It was an active presence that shaped the outcomes of the competition. The mythology surrounding the Olympic Games also helped to create a sense of unity among the Greek city-states. Though the Greeks were often divided by rivalries and warfare, the shared belief in the gods and the mythological foundations of the games brought them together in a common cultural and religious experience. The games were a moment when all Greeks, regardless of their political affiliations, could come together to honor their gods and celebrate their shared ideals of excellence, honor, and physical prowess. The mythology of the games reinforced this sense of unity, reminding the Greeks that their identity as a people was rooted in their common worship of the gods and their shared values. In this way, Greek mythology was not only the backdrop for the Olympic Games, it was a living, breathing part of the event itself. The myths shaped the game's religious rituals, the athlete's sense of purpose, and the public's understanding of victory. They provided a framework for understanding the deeper meaning of the competition, one that transcended individual achievement and connected each victor to the divine. The mythology of the gods, heroes, and rituals reinforced the sacred nature of the games, making the Olympics a celebration not just of human physical prowess, but a Greek understanding of the world as a place where human achievement and divine will were intricately intertwined. The legacy of this mythological connection to the Olympic Games is still felt today, though in a more secular form. While the modern Olympic Games have moved away from their religious and mythological roots, the spirit of competition, excellence, and unity that characterized the ancient games remains. The idea of athletes striving for greatness and honor of something larger than themselves, whether it be a nation or the ideals of the Olympic movement, echoes the ancient Greeks' reverence for the gods and the heroes of their myths. In this sense, the mythology of the ancient games continues to resonate, reminding us of the enduring power of competition, honor, and the quest for excellence. The Olympic Games, born in ancient Greece, have undergone a profound transformation over the millennia, evolving from a religious and athletic festival in honor of Zeus to the global sporting spectacle that we know today. This evolution reflects not only changes in athletic practices, but also shifts in cultural, political, and social values. The story of how the games moved from Olympia to the modern era is one of adaptation, reinvention, and the power of human achievement, resonating with people across the world. The ancient Olympic Games were held in Olympia, Greece, from at least 776 BC and continued for nearly 12 centuries. During this period, the games were a deeply religious event, closely tied to the worship of the gods, especially Zeus. The events themselves were not only athletic competitions, but means of honoring the divine, a ritual that served to unite the various Greek city-states in a rare moment of peaceful cooperation. Victory in the games was seen as a sign of divine favor, and the athletes who triumphed were celebrated not just as champions, but as recipients of the gods' blessings. The games during this era were initially quite simple. The first recorded Olympic Games, held in 776 BCE, consisted of only a single event, the Stadion Race, a sprint of approximately 200 meters. Over time, however, the Games expanded to include more events, such as the Dialos, a double stadion race, the long jump, the discus throw, wrestling, boxing, and, eventually, the pentathlon, which included 5 different events. The games became more competitive and complex, drawing athletes from all over the Greek world, who would come to Olympia to demonstrate their physical prowess and compete for honor and glory. The victors received a wreath made of olive branches, which symbolized their achievement and connection to the gods. One of the defining features of the ancient games was the concept of the Olympic truce, ekakyria, which called for a temporary cessation of hostilities between the Greek city-states during the games. This truce, which allowed athletes, spectators, and officials to travel safely to Olympia, was a rare and sacred moment of peace in a world often torn by warfare. It symbolized a belief that athletic excellence in competition could transcend political conflict, and that, for a brief period, all Greeks could unite in their shared reverence for the gods and their ideals of human achievement. The ancient Olympics, however, came to an end in 393 CE, when Emperor Theodosius I, seeking to solidify Christian dominance in the Roman Empire, outlawed all pagan festivals, including the Olympic Games. The end of the ancient Olympics marked the conclusion of a millennium-long tradition, and the Games would not be revived for over 1,500 years. During this long hiatus, the Games faded from collective memory, overshadowed by the rise of Christianity and the decline of the classical Greek and Roman worlds. It was not until the 19th century that the idea of reviving the Olympic Games resurfaced, fueled by a renewed interest in ancient Greek culture and the ideals of the classical world. The intellectual movement known as the Renaissance had already rekindled a fascination with the Greek and Roman civilizations, but it was the birth of modern nationalism and the desire for international cooperation that ultimately led to the resurrection of the Olympic Games. The man credited with reviving the Olympics was Pierre de Coubertin, a French educator and historian who was inspired by the ancient Greek ideals of physical education and international unity. In 1896, Coubertin's efforts culminated in the first modern Olympic Games, held in Athens, Greece. The event was a far cry from the grand spectacle of the ancient Olympics. The Games featured just 13 countries, and only a small number of events were contested, including track and field, gymnastics, and wrestling. Nevertheless, the Games were seen as a remarkable achievement and were intended to revive the ancient Olympic spirit of friendly competition, honor, and global unity. In the early years of the modern Olympics, the Games were relatively small and mostly focused on athletics and a few other sports. However, the Olympic movement began to grow steadily, gaining in both scope and prestige. Over the years, more sports were added to the Olympic program, and the Games became a major international event, attracting athletes from countries all over the world. By the early 20th century, the Olympics had evolved into a multi-sport event, featuring a wide variety of disciplines, including swimming, tennis, soccer, and boxing. The first modern Olympics also laid the groundwork for many of the traditions and practices that would come to define the Games in the 20th and 21st centuries. The Olympic flag, featuring 5 interlocking rings representing the 5 inhabited continents, was introduced in 1913 and became a symbol of the unity and diversity of the Games. The Olympic motto, Citius Altius Fortius, faster, higher, stronger, was adopted, emphasizing the importance of pushing the limits of human potential. These symbols and ideals helped shape the identity of the modern Olympics and distinguish them from other sporting events. The Olympics, however, were not immune to the tumultuous political landscape of the 20th century. The Games were interrupted by both world wars, and the political climate of the Cold War brought tensions and boycotts to the event. In 1936, the Berlin Olympics were used by Nazi Germany as a propaganda tool, and the 1980 Moscow Olympics and the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics were marred by boycotts led by the United States and the Soviet Union, respectively. Despite these challenges, the Games continue to grow in scale and significance, with the participation of athletes from more countries than ever before. The introduction of the Winter Olympics in 1924 further expanded the reach and appeal of the Games. The Winter Games, which feature sports such as skiing, ice hockey, and figure skating, provided a platform for athletes from colder climates to compete at the highest level. The inclusion of the Winter Games highlighted the Olympic movement's commitment to fostering international competition in a variety of sports, regardless of the geographic location or climate of the participants. The Olympics continued to evolve throughout the 20th century, becoming not only a celebration of athletic achievement, but also a stage for global diplomacy and political expression. The Games provide a platform for countries to demonstrate their prowess on the world stage, while also giving athletes a chance to represent their nations and compete for global glory. The Olympics have always been a place where politics and sport intersect, and this intersection became particularly pronounced in the late 20th and early 21st centuries. One of the most significant changes in the modern Olympics has been the increasing professionalization of the athletes. In the early years of the modern Games, athletes were largely amateurs, competing for the love of sport rather than financial reward. However, over time, the line between amateur and professional athletes became increasingly blurred, especially in high-profile sports like basketball, soccer, and tennis. The inclusion of professional athletes in the Olympics has transformed the nature of the Games, making them more competitive and attracting more global attention. The Olympics also became a platform for greater diversity and inclusion as more nations, including those from Africa, Asia, and Latin America, began to send athletes to the Games. The participation of female athletes, who were excluded from the ancient Games, has been one of the most significant changes in the modern Olympics. Today, the Olympic Games are one of the few events where athletes from all over the world, regardless of gender, race, or nationality, come together to compete on an equal footing. The Olympics of the 21st century have become a global phenomenon, watched by millions of people around the world. They have expanded beyond the realm of sports to include cultural events, such as the opening and closing ceremonies, which showcase the history and traditions of the host country. The Olympics have become a symbol of global cooperation, celebrating the idea that sport can transcend borders and bring people together in the spirit of competition, friendship, and peace. The evolution of the Olympic Games from their origins in ancient Greece to their modern incarnation is a testament to the enduring power of sport and the human desire to achieve greatness. The Games have not only evolved in terms of the events and disciplines contested, but also in their cultural and political significance. From their religious roots in ancient Olympia to their status as a global sporting spectacle, the Olympics have reflected the changing values and aspirations of societies across the world. As the Games continue to evolve, they remain a powerful symbol of human achievement and the pursuit of excellence, bringing together people from all walks of life to compete, celebrate, and inspire the world. The Olympic flame is one of the most iconic and enduring symbols of the modern Olympic Games, representing the ideals of competition, peace, and unity. Its origins, however, trace back to the ancient Olympics, where fire held both religious and symbolic significance. Over time, the torch and its flame have evolved from a sacred ritual linked to ancient Greek religious practices into a global emblem of the Olympic movement. Today, the journey of the Olympic flame is not just about a physical torch relay, but also about connecting the past with the present, the individual with the collective, and the local with the global. In ancient Greece, fire was a symbol of the god's presence and power, and it played an essential role in religious ceremonies. The Olympic Games, dedicated to Zeus, the king of the gods, were steeped in ritual, and fire was central to these religious practices. The flame was considered a symbol of divine power, purification, and renewal. Before the start of the Games, the sacred flame was lit at the altar of Hera in Olympia, using the sun's rays to ignite the fire. This ritual was not only a technical procedure, but also a powerful symbolic act. The use of sunlight to create fire was believed to represent the god's favor, linking the power of the natural world with human achievement. The lighting of the Olympic flame in ancient Olympia was the start of a sacred process. The flame was carefully tended and transported to the site of the Games, where it would burn throughout the duration of the event. Athletes and spectators alike were united in their reverence of flame, which represented both the god's presence and the hope that the Games would be a time of peace and unity. The flame symbolized a connection between the divine and the mortal, and it was believed that the gods would watch over the athletes as they competed in their quest for excellence. Though the flame in ancient Greece had this deeply religious significance, it was not necessarily a symbol of international competition or unity. The Games themselves were a reflection of the Greek ideals of arete excellence, and the flame was primarily a religious emblem used to sanctify the Games and honor the gods. As such, the flame's role was confined to the local context of Olympia, serving the purposes of Greek ritual and tradition. However, as the ancient Olympic Games came to an end in the 4th century CE, the symbolism of the Olympic flame largely faded from view. With the rise of Christianity and the subsequent abolition of the games by the Roman Emperor Theodosius I, the flame was extinguished, and it would not be rekindled for more than a millennium. During this long hiatus, the Olympic flame remained a forgotten relic of a time when the games were a religious celebration of Greek identity and ideals. The flame was revived as part of the modern Olympic movement, which began in the late 19th century. Pierre de Coubertin, the founder of the modern Olympics, sought to recapture the spirit of the ancient games, and the flame became a central element of the modern games. In 1928, the idea of relighting the flame was proposed by Karl Diem, a German sports official, in preparation for the 1936 Berlin Olympics. The torch relay, however, was first introduced at the 1936 Summer Olympics, and the modern tradition of the Olympic flame was born. The flame was lit in Olympia and then carried by runners to the site of the games, symbolizing connection between ancient Greece and the modern world. The Olympic flame's journey from Olympia to the host city was imbued with new meaning in the context of the 20th century. As the torch traveled across countries, it became a symbol of international unity and peace. The relay emphasized the idea that the Olympics were not just a national event, but a global gathering, uniting athletes from every corner of the world. The Olympic flame was no longer just a local religious symbol of divine favor. It had transformed into an emblem of human achievement, cooperation, and friendship. The journey of the flame reflected the idea that, despite political, cultural, and ideological differences, the world could come together in the spirit of sport. The tradition of the Olympic torch relay, which began in Berlin in 1936, was a means of connecting the games with the people who would participate in them, and it also became a vehicle for creating excitement and enthusiasm for the event. The torch relay symbolizes the global reach of the Olympic movement. The flame travels to different countries, crossing borders and continents, igniting hope and inspiring unity in its wake. It represents the collective dreams of athletes and citizens from diverse nations, all of whom share in pursuit of excellence and the hope of achieving greatness on the world stage. The significance of the Olympic flame has deepened in the modern era, as it has come to represent more than just the opening of the Games. It is a symbol of the enduring ideals of the Olympics: peace, excellence, friendship, and unity. The flame embodies the spirit of the Games, reminding the world that the Olympics are not only about individual achievements, but also about the collective celebration of humanity's potential. The journey of the flame is a reminder that sport, in its purest form, has the power to transcend national and cultural differences, bringing people together in a common purpose. The torch relay itself has evolved into a major event that generates global attention. Thousands of people gather along the route to witness the flame's passage, and the torchbearers who carry are often seen as representatives of the values of the Olympic movement. In recent decades, the relay has included notable figures from various walks of life, including Olympic athletes, celebrities, and even ordinary citizens. The diversity of torchbearers reflects the inclusiveness of the Games and the way in which the Olympics strive to involve people from all walks of life. Moreover, the Olympic flame serves as a reminder of the power of symbolism in the context of global events. The lighting of the flame at the opening ceremony is one of the most dramatic and emotional moments of the Games. It signals the beginning of a new chapter in the history of the Olympics, a chapter in which athletes and spectators come together to celebrate human achievement. The final lighting of the cauldron, often performed by an Olympic champion, marks the moment when the Games are officially inaugurated, and the flame will burn brightly throughout the duration of the competition. The lighting of the cauldron is a powerful act, symbolizing fulfillment of a shared dream and the collective spirit of the Games. The Olympic flame's role has also expanded beyond its traditional function as a religious symbol or even as a mere opening act for the Games. In recent years, the flame has been used as a platform for political expression and cultural exchange. For example, the flame has been carried by torchbearers in countries that have been at the center of international conflicts, serving as a symbol of hope for peace. The relay has often coincided with significant global events, and its journey has sometimes been a way of bringing attention to issues such as human rights, environmental concerns, and social justice. Despite its many symbolic meanings, the Olympic flame remains fundamentally tied to the ideals of the Olympic movement. It is a symbol of the search for excellence, the pursuit of peace, and the unity of humanity through sport. Each time the flame is lit and travels toward its final destination, It brings with it the hopes and aspirations of people from around the world. The flame represents the best of what humanity can achieve, not only in the realm of sport, but in the realm of human spirit, collaboration, and mutual respect. The journey of the flame, which traverses a globe, not only connects the games to the ancient origins of the Olympics, but also reflects the continued relevance of the Olympic movement in the modern world. The flame has become a symbol of resilience, hope, and unity, a beacon that shines brightly in times of peace and in times of challenge. From its ancient roots in the sacred rituals of Olympia to its modern role in the global celebration of athletic excellence, the Olympic flame remains a potent symbol of what is possible when humanity comes together in pursuit of a common goal. The Olympic Games have left an indelible mark on the world, shaping not only the realm of sport, but also influencing broader societal, cultural, and political landscapes. The Games, which originated as a religious festival in ancient Greece, have evolved into one of the most significant global events, with an enduring legacy that transcends the athletic arena. From fostering international unity to sparking advancements in infrastructure and social progress, the Olympics have shaped the modern world in ways that continue to resonate today. One of the most profound impacts of the Olympic Games has been promotion of international cooperation and unity. At their core, the Olympics represent the ideal that sport can bridge divides between nations, cultures, and ideologies. This vision of unity through competition has become a guiding principle of the modern Olympic movement. The Games bring together athletes from diverse backgrounds, creating a platform where people from all over the world come together to celebrate excellence in sport, regardless of their nationality, race, or political affiliation. The Olympic Games serve as a moment when political and cultural differences are set aside, even if just temporarily, in favor of the spirit of friendly competition. Despite the tensions of the Cold War and political boycotts, such as those in 1980 and 1984, the Olympics have continued to be a beacon of peaceful coexistence, providing an opportunity for athletes to compete without the shadow of global conflict. The Games have shown the world that sport can be an agent for diplomacy, as exemplified by the ping-pong diplomacy between the United States and China in the 1970s, which helped thaw relations during the Cold War. The Olympic Games also serve as a stage for global unity in the face of adversity. For example, the Olympics have been used as a platform for promoting peace and addressing social issues. The 1968 Mexico City Olympics, famously known for the Black Power salute by American athletes Tommy Smith and John Carlos, became a powerful statement about racial inequality and civil rights. In recent years, the Olympics have also highlighted issues such as gender equality, LGBTQ+ rights, and climate change, helping to spark global conversations about these pressing matters. In this way, the Games have had a broader cultural and political influence, serving as a mirror for societal changes and a platform for activism. In addition to fostering international unity, the Olympics have significantly impacted the development of global infrastructure. Hosting the Games has often led to construction of new sports facilities, transportation systems, and other essential infrastructure. This development not only benefits the host city in the short term, but can also leave a lasting legacy for future generations. The construction of modern stadiums, Olympic villages, and airports are just a few examples of how the Games have prompted urban development. For cities like Barcelona in 1992, Beijing 2008, and London 2012, hosting the Olympics has led to significant improvements in infrastructure, tourism, and global visibility. The urban transformation that comes with hosting the Games is not without controversy. However, while the development of infrastructure can bring long-term economic benefits, it can also lead to displacement, environmental concerns, and the risk of creating white elephants, expensive facilities that are underused after the Games have ended. In some cases, the promise of economic revitalization has not always been realized, and the long-term impact of hosting the Olympics on a city's economy can be mixed. Despite these challenges, the legacy of the Games remains a powerful factor in a host city's development, providing opportunities for growth and modernization. The Olympics have also contributed to the global popularization of certain sports and the professionalization of athletes. Before the modern Olympics, sports were largely localized and played within specific regions or countries. However, with the inclusion of these sports in the Olympic program, they have gained global attention and become integral parts of international culture. Basketball, volleyball, and ice hockey are just a few examples of sports that were propelled into the global spotlight by their inclusion in the Olympic Games. For athletes, the Olympics offer the ultimate stage to achieve personal glory, national pride, and international recognition. The Games provide a platform for athletes to showcase their talents and earn financial opportunities, sponsorships, and professional contracts, thus transforming the very nature of professional sports. The increasing professionalization of Olympic athletes has had a major influence on the development of sport as a whole. While the ancient Games were reserved for amateurs, the modern Olympics have evolved to include professional athletes from all corners of the world. This shift has led to the growth of global sporting leagues, such as the NBA, NFL, and European football leagues, and has significantly influenced how sports are marketed, consumed, and monetized. The rise of media coverage, sponsorships, and advertising has transformed the Olympics into a major entertainment spectacle, attracting billions of viewers worldwide and creating a multi-billion-dollar industry around the Games. The Olympic Games have also played a significant role in promoting social change, particularly in terms of gender equality. In ancient Greece, women were excluded from the Olympics, both as competitors and spectators. However, the modern Games have made significant strides toward gender equality, with women now competing in nearly every sport. The inclusion of female athletes has been a major milestone, empowering women to participate at the highest levels of sport and challenging traditional gender norms. The 2016 Rio Olympics marked the first time that every nation had female athletes competing, a testament to the progress made in terms of gender inclusivity. Similarly, the introduction of the first-ever mixed-gender events, such as mixed relay races in swimming and athletics, has furthered the cause of equality in sport. The Olympics have also served as a catalyst for the promotion of human rights and equality. The Games have become a space where athletes can make statements about social justice, as seen in the iconic protests of John Carlos and Tommie Smith in 1968, or the more recent protests by athletes advocating for racial equality. The Olympic stage has given athletes a global platform to voice their opinions on political issues. And over the years, many athletes have used the Olympics to raise awareness about causes they care deeply about. Whether it is Muhammad Ali's stand against the Vietnam War, Colin Kaepernick's protest for racial justice, or more recent movements for climate action, the Olympics have provided a space for political expression, challenging the idea that sport and politics should remain separate. The cultural influence of the Olympics extends beyond sports and politics. The Games have become a celebration of diversity, with athletes from all over the world coming together to compete, share their cultures, and learn from one another. The Olympic Village, where athletes from different countries live and train together, has become a symbol of cross-cultural exchange. It is here that friendships are forged and lifelong bonds are formed between competitors who may otherwise never have met. The opening and closing ceremonies, which showcase the host country's culture, traditions, and history, have become global spectacles, furthering the idea that the Olympics are a celebration of humanity's shared achievements. The impact of the Olympic Games is also deeply felt in the realm of national pride. For many countries, the Olympics provide a rare opportunity to unite behind their athletes, celebrate their nation's achievements, and experience collective pride. For athletes, winning an Olympic medal represents the culmination of years of hard work and sacrifice, not only for personal glory, but for the honor of representing their country on the world stage. The Games become a moment when national identities are reinforced and patriotism is celebrated in a global context. As we look to the future, the legacy of the Olympic Games will continue to evolve. The global nature of the Games, with the rise of new sports, emerging technologies, and changes in political dynamics, will undoubtedly influence how the Olympics are experienced in years to come. The Games will continue to challenge societies to push the boundaries of excellence, diversity, and equality, while also serving as a platform for global cooperation and peace. In conclusion, the Olympic Games have left an enduring legacy on modern society, shaping not only the world of sports but also broader cultural, political, and social landscapes. The Games have provided a platform for international unity, social change, and global cooperation. They have transformed how we think about sport, nationalism, and human rights, leaving behind a legacy that will continue to inspire future generations. Whether through the development of infrastructure, the promotion of gender equality, or the celebration of cultural diversity, the Olympics remain one of the most powerful forces in shaping modern society. The Games continue to symbolize humanity's shared desire for excellence, peace, and progress. The Olympic Games, a celebration of human excellence, have always evolved alongside the changing tides of history, from their humble beginnings in ancient Greece to their modern incarnation as a global sporting spectacle. One of the most significant factors in this evolution has been the integration of technology. Over the decades, technology has played a crucial role in transforming the Games, enhancing the spectator experience, improving the performance of athletes, and ensuring fair play. From the invention of the stopwatch to the use of instant replay, technology has continually reshaped the Olympic Games in ways both seen and unseen, pushing the boundaries of what is possible in sports and competition. In the early days of the modern Olympics, the role of technology was fairly minimal. However, as the Games expanded and the stakes grew higher, the demand for precision, fairness, and efficiency in both competition and organization grew as well. The first major technological advancement in the modern Olympics came with the introduction of the stopwatch. Prior to its use, athletes' times were measured using more rudimentary methods, such as a human eye or simple chalk marks. The stopwatch revolutionized timing in the Olympic Games, providing an accurate, precise way to measure performance, especially in races and track events. The ability to measure time down to the hundredth of a second opened new possibilities for athletes, coaches, and officials, allowing for more scientific training methods and better analysis of performance. The role of technology continued to grow in the 20th century, particularly with the advancement of television. The 1936 Berlin Olympics were the first to be broadcast on television, bringing the Games to a global audience in a way never seen before. This technological breakthrough allowed viewers around the world to witness Olympic moments in real time, creating an emotional connection between the athletes and the spectators. The ability to watch the Games unfold live on TV helped to cement the Olympics as a global event, one that brought nations together and created shared experiences. The coverage of the Games became more sophisticated with each passing year, with multiple cameras, slow-motion replays, and commentary, making it possible for spectators to witness every detail of the competition. One of the most significant technological advances in the Olympics has been the introduction of instant replay. In the 1960s, television networks began experimenting with the use of slow-motion replays to analyze key moments in the Games, particularly in high-stakes events like photo finishes. Instant replay quickly became a staple of Olympic broadcasts, allowing viewers to see moments of glory and controversy in more detail. This technology has also become an invaluable tool for judges and officials, enabling them to make more informed decisions during competitions. In events where timing and judgment are crucial, such as gymnastics or diving, instant replay has helped ensure that scores reflect the true performance of the athlete, promoting fairness and transparency. As the technology continued to advance, so did the tools used to measure athletes' performances. In sports like swimming, new timing systems, such as touchpad that detect when an athlete finishes a race, have revolutionized the way races are timed and recorded. These systems, along with the introduction of electronic scoring systems in sports like fencing and archery, have eliminated human error, ensuring a higher degree of accuracy. For instance, in swimming, the introduction of underwater cameras and sensors has allowed for more precise measurement of times and split-second finishes, ensuring that even the smallest margins are recognized. This level of precision is vital when records are often broken by fractions of a second, as seen in the Olympic Games. Technology has also had a major impact on the way athletes train and prepare for the Games. In the past, athletes had to rely on their intuition, experience, and basic training methods to improve their performance. Today, athletes have access to advanced tools like video analysis software, biometric sensors, and wearable devices that track everything from heart rate to muscle tension. These technologies allow athletes and coaches to gather real-time data during training sessions, enabling them to make adjustments that enhance performance. For example, in sprinting, coaches can analyze an athlete's stride and running mechanics in minute detail, adjusting their form to maximize speed and efficiency. Similarly, in cycling, advanced power meters measure the athlete's output, providing critical data on energy expenditure and allowing for better pacing strategies during races. The use of biomechanics and motion analysis has also transformed training in sports like gymnastics and swimming, where technique is paramount. Athletes can now use 3D motion capture technology to analyze their movements, identifying inefficiencies or areas where they can improve. This level of insight would have been unimaginable in the past and has allowed athletes to fine-tune their techniques, resulting in more precise and efficient performances. Virtual reality, VR, and augmented reality, AR, are also being used to train athletes, offering immersive experiences that simulate competition environments and help athletes mentally prepare for high-pressure situations. In addition to enhancing performance, technology has also made the Olympic Games safer for athletes. Advances in sports equipment, such as improved helmets, padding, and protective gear, have significantly reduced the risk of injury in contact sports like football, rugby, and ice hockey. For example, the development of concussion protocols and high-tech helmets has made sports safer for athletes who are at risk of head injuries. In skiing and snowboarding, the use of advanced materials and equipment has improved safety while still allowing athletes to push the limits of speed and skill. In gymnastics, advances in mats and padding have reduced the impact on athletes during high-flying routines, protecting them from potentially dangerous falls. The Olympics have also embraced advancements in broadcasting technology, bringing the games to viewers in increasingly innovative ways. High-definition television HD, 4K, and even 8K resolution have made it possible for spectators to experience the games with stunning clarity, providing a level of detail that brings the action to life. The use of drone cameras has allowed for breathtaking aerial views of the events, providing unique perspectives of the action and adding an extra layer of excitement to the viewing experience. Moreover, with the rise of digital streaming platforms, viewers around the world can now watch the games on their smartphones, tablets, and computers, breaking down geographical barriers and increasing accessibility to the Olympics. Perhaps one of the most transformative changes in the modern Olympics has been the integration of artificial intelligence, AI, and machine learning. These technologies are now being used in a variety of ways to improve the games, from enhancing the fan experience to providing more detailed performance analytics. AI is being used to predict outcomes, analyze athlete performance, and even assist in judging certain events. In sports like athletics, where precision timing is crucial, AI can help spot anomalies in performance or identify patterns that might not be immediately visible to human observers. In fact, the International Olympic Committee, IOC, has already started incorporating AI into event management, optimizing scheduling and logistics, and even improving the security of the games. The rise of social media and mobile apps has also had a profound impact on how fans engage with the Olympics. These platforms allow for instant updates, live commentary, and the sharing of moments in real time. Fans no longer have to wait for traditional broadcasts. They can follow the action as it unfolds on their devices. Social media also provides athletes with a direct line of communication to their fans, allowing them to share their journey and experiences in a personal and authentic way. This direct interaction between athletes and spectators has helped build a more connected and engaged global audience, making the Olympics more accessible and relatable than ever before. While technology has undoubtedly transformed the Olympic Games in numerous ways, it has also raised important questions about fairness and equity. As the Games become more technologically advanced, there are concerns about the accessibility of these technologies to all athletes. Wealthier countries and athletes with greater resources may have access to cutting-edge training tools and equipment, potentially creating an uneven playing field. Additionally, the increasing reliance on technology in sports raises questions about the balance between human ability and technological enhancement. For instance, in events like swimming, technology like high-tech suits and devices that monitor performance could be seen as an unfair advantage. Striking a balance between the use of technology and the preservation of the spirit of athletic competition will remain an ongoing challenge for the Olympic movement. Furthermore, as technology advances, the Games must also grapple with issues related to privacy and data security. With athletes' data being collected and analyzed in real time, there are concerns about how that information is used and who has access to it. Protecting athletes' personal data, ensuring fair use of technology, and maintaining the integrity of the Games will be important considerations for the future. In conclusion, the role of technology in the modern Olympic Games is undeniable. From improving the accuracy of results and enhancing athlete performance to transforming the viewing experience and expanding global accessibility, Technology has revolutionized the Olympics in countless ways. However, as technology continues to evolve, the Games will need to address the challenges and ethical considerations that come with it, ensuring that the spirit of the Olympics, honor, excellence, and fair competition, remains intact. The integration of technology into the Olympics is a testament to human ingenuity, but also serves as a reminder of the need to balance progress with tradition in pursuit of sporting excellence. The Olympic Games, as one of the most universally recognized events in the world, have an extraordinary capacity to unite and inspire people from all walks of life. While the Games are primarily a celebration of athletic excellence, they also play a pivotal role in shaping national identities and fostering national pride. For the athletes who participate in the nations they represent, the Olympics serve as more than just a competition. They are an opportunity to showcase national strength, resilience, and unity on the global stage. This intersection of sport and identity has profound social and cultural implications, both for the athletes and the citizens of the nations they represent. At its core, the Olympics are about more than just the medals and the victories. They are a stage for nations to project their image, values, and aspirations. When athletes from different countries step onto the Olympic podium, they are not just representing themselves or their individual accomplishments. They are embodying the pride, history, and hopes of their nations. The flag that flies behind them and the anthem that plays as they receive their medal are powerful symbols of national pride and collective achievement. This sense of shared identity is often most evident during the opening and closing ceremonies, where the Olympic Village becomes a microcosm of the world, with athletes marching in unison, carrying the flags of their home countries, and symbolizing the diverse and interconnected nature of the global community. For many nations, the Olympics are a chance to showcase their political, cultural, and social values to the world. Hosting the Games offers a platform for nations to demonstrate their organizational capacity, infrastructure, and hospitality. For example, when the Soviet Union hosted the 1980 Moscow Olympics, it was an opportunity to highlight its strength as a superpower, presenting itself as a modern and dynamic nation. Similarly, countries like China and Brazil have used the Olympics as a way to project a new, more progressive image to the world. The 2008 Beijing Olympics, for example, showcased China's rise as a global economic power, while the 2016 Rio Olympics highlighted Brazil's culture, warmth, and hospitality. These efforts to craft a national narrative through the Olympics reflect the broader significance of the event beyond sport, as it becomes an avenue for nations to assert their place on the world stage. The Olympics can also have a powerful impact on national unity. Major international competitions like the World Cup or the Olympics can provide a rare moment of collective national pride, especially in times of political or social upheaval. For example, during periods of economic downturn or political instability, the performance of a nation's athletes on the Olympic stage can provide a much-needed sense of pride and accomplishment. The success of an athlete can transcend divisions within a society, offering citizens a shared focal point for their national identity. In countries like Jamaica, where track and field athletes have long been sources of national pride, an Olympic gold medal can become a symbol of the nation's global standing and spirit of perseverance, despite facing challenges in other areas of life. Moreover, the Olympics serve as a reminder that national identity is fluid and evolving. Countries use the Games not only to highlight their achievements, but also to demonstrate their commitment to values like inclusivity, equality, and progress. The increasing visibility of women athletes, for example, reflects a broader shift toward gender equality in many societies. The inclusion of athletes from underrepresented countries and the celebration of diversity in sports have also been powerful ways for nations to show their commitment to global unity and the breaking down of barriers. For many nations, the Olympics offer an opportunity to redefine national identity in more inclusive terms, demonstrating how far they're come in embracing different ethnicities, cultures, and social values. One of the most compelling aspects of the Olympics is the way in which it allows citizens to connect emotionally with their nation's athletes, even if they have never met them or shared in their personal struggles. The athletes who compete in the Games often become national symbols, heroes in the eyes of their fellow citizens. This phenomenon is particularly evident when athletes overcome personal adversity or defy the odds to achieve success on the Olympic stage. In these instances, the athlete becomes a symbol of perseverance, determination, and the collective spirit of their country. Take the example of South Africa's Caster Semenya, who not only faced intense scrutiny over her natural abilities, but also became a symbol of the country's struggles against apartheid and ongoing issues with race and gender. Her victories at the Olympics were celebrated not just for her athletic achievement, but for the larger societal implications they carried. Similarly, a moment of unexpected triumph can galvanize national pride. The miracle on ice during the 1980 Winter Olympics, when the U.S. men's hockey team defeated the heavily favored Soviet Union, is one of the most famous examples of how the Olympics can inspire national unity and pride. The victory was about more than hockey. It was a symbol of American resilience and determination during the Cold War, a moment that transcended the sport itself. This emotional connection between the athlete's success and national pride is a key feature of the Olympics, making the Games not only a celebration of sport, but also a powerful vehicle for reinforcing national identity. The Olympics also have the power to create a sense of community and collective achievement that resonates far beyond the athletes themselves. For fans, the Games provide an opportunity to come together and celebrate their country's athletes. Watching the Games on television or in public viewing spaces, citizens can collectively experience moments of victory and defeat, creating a shared bond among people of all ages and backgrounds. In countries with a strong sporting tradition, the Olympics can be an event that brings families, communities, and even entire nations together. The Olympics become a time when citizens put aside their everyday concerns to cheer on their athletes, united by the belief that success on the Olympic stage is a reflection of the strength and values of their nation. However, the impact of the Olympics on national identity is not always straightforward or universally positive. For some nations, the Games can expose deep-rooted social, political, or economic issues. For example, the 1936 Berlin Olympics became a powerful tool for Nazi Germany's propaganda machine, showcasing the country as a proud and powerful state at a time of rising nationalism and fascism. More recently, the decision of the United States to boycott the 1980 Moscow Olympics in protest of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan was a reflection of the tension between national pride and global political realities. The Olympics, in this sense, are not always a unifying force. They can also highlight divisions both within nations and between them. Nonetheless, even in these instances, the Games continue to shape national narratives, influencing how citizens and governments perceive themselves on the world stage. As the Olympic Games continue to evolve, so too does their impact on national identity and pride. The Games now serve as a platform for countries to showcase not only their athletic prowess, but also their cultural values, political ideals, and commitment to global cooperation. The Olympic Games offer a moment for nations to reflect on their progress, and for some, their past struggles. Through the successes of their athletes, countries can communicate their values to the world, from perseverance and resilience to inclusivity and diversity. The Olympics offer a space for nations to define who they are, who they aspire to be, and how they relate to the broader global community. In conclusion, the Olympic Games have a profound impact on national identity and pride, providing countries with a platform to showcase their strengths and values on the world stage. The Games have become a symbol of unity, resilience, and collective achievement, transcending the world of sport and reaching into the realms of culture, politics, and social values. Through the triumphs and challenges of their athletes, nations reinforce their sense of self and project their ideals to the world. The Olympics, in this sense, are more than just a competition. They are a celebration of what it means to belong to a nation, to be part of something larger than oneself, and to share in the pride of collective achievement. The Olympic Games, celebrated every 4 years, are much more than a gathering of elite athletes from around the world. They are a global media event broadcasted, reported, and analyzed across countless platforms. The role of the media in shaping the Olympic narrative has grown tremendously, influencing how the Games are perceived, how athletes are portrayed, and how the broader public connects with the event. From the first television broadcast to the rise of social media and digital platforms, the way the Olympics are presented has evolved, and with it, the way people experience the Games. The media's influence on the Olympics is profound, shaping everything from public opinion to the very cultural significance of the event. In the early days of the modern Olympics, the media was relatively simple. Newspapers and radio were the primary forms of communication, and the public's understanding of the Games was shaped largely by reports that were often limited in scope and access. However, As television became a dominant medium in the mid-20th century, the Olympic Games experienced a seismic shift in how they were experienced by the global audience. The 1936 Berlin Olympics were the first to be televised live, though limited to a small audience in Germany. It wasn't until the 1960 Rome Olympics that the Games were televised live on a global scale, marking a turning point in the Olympics' relationship with the media. The introduction of live television broadcasts transformed the Olympic Games, turning them into a global spectacle. For the first time, millions of people around the world could watch the Games unfold in real time, experiencing the thrills, the drama, and the triumphs alongside the athletes themselves. Television allowed viewers to witness historic moments in a way that was previously impossible, bringing them into the heart of the action. Iconic moments like Muhammad Ali's victory in the 1960 Rome Olympics or the 1980 Miracle on Ice at the Lake Placid Winter Games were captured in real time and broadcasted across the world, reaching audiences far beyond the stadium. These broadcasts made the Olympics accessible to everyone, regardless of location, and helped cement the Games as one of the most anticipated events on the global calendar. As television coverage expanded, so too did the role of the media in shaping the narrative of the Games. Journalists, commentators, and reporters began to frame the story of the Olympics in terms that resonated with the public. Media coverage highlighted not only the athletic achievements, but also the personal stories of the athletes, their struggles, triumphs, and backgrounds. The rise of sports journalism allowed for a deeper understanding of the athletes, often turning them into global icons. Athletes like Jesse Owens, Wilma Rudolph, Michael Phelps, and Simone Biles became household names not just because of their victories, but because the media crafted compelling narratives around their journeys, struggles, and cultural significance. These stories resonated deeply with the public, and the Olympics became a platform for storytelling as much as it was about sport. The media's influence on the Olympics extends beyond just the athletes themselves. It also shapes the way entire nations are portrayed. The Olympics have become an opportunity for countries to broadcast their national identity and cultural values to the world. Media coverage of the opening and closing ceremonies, as well as the stories of the athletes, allows host countries to showcase their culture, history, and achievements on the world stage. For instance, the 2008 Beijing Olympics were a showcase of China's rapid modernization and cultural heritage, with the opening ceremony designed to highlight the country's history, achievements, and global ambitions. The media played a significant role in shaping the public's perception of China's rise as a global power, with the Games serving as both a celebration of the country's past and a vision of its future. Similarly, the media's coverage of the 2016 Rio Olympics offered Brazil an opportunity to project its vibrant culture, hospitality, and resilience to the world. At the same time, the media's focus on the challenges Brazil faced, political turmoil, economic difficulties, and issues related to infrastructure, shaped the narrative of the Games, highlighting the nation's efforts to overcome adversity and host a successful Olympics. The portrayal of host countries through media coverage, often framed by the backdrop of political or economic realities, add an extra layer of complexity to the Olympic experience, as the Games become a lens through which nations are viewed, evaluated, and understood. In recent years, social media has taken on an increasingly central role in shaping the Olympic narrative. Platforms like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube allow athletes, spectators, and media outlets to share moments from the Games instantly, creating a more direct and interactive relationship between the event and the public. Social media has democratized the way the Olympics are experienced, allowing fans to engage with the Games in real time, share their opinions, and connect with others across the globe. The ability to watch highlights on YouTube or follow an athlete's journey on Instagram has made the Olympics more accessible than ever, particularly for younger audiences who may not have the patience to sit through hours of traditional broadcasts. Athletes, too, have embraced social media as a way to connect with their fans and share their personal stories. Platforms like Twitter and Instagram have allowed Olympic athletes to bypass traditional media and communicate directly with their audiences. This shift has led to the rise of the influencer athlete, individuals who use their platforms to not only promote their sporting careers, but also advocate for causes, raise awareness about social issues, and connect with followers on a personal level. The way athletes portray themselves on social media has become an integral part of their public persona, and these platforms offer them greater control over their image than the media traditionally provided. However, the The rise of social media has also led to new challenges for both athletes and the media. The speed at which information spreads on platforms like Twitter can lead to misinformation, misinterpretation, or unnecessary drama. Athletes are often subject to intense scrutiny, with their every action and word analyzed and commented upon in real time. While social media has given athletes a direct line to their fans, it has also subjected them to increased pressure and criticism. The 2016 Olympics, for example, saw athletes like Ryan Lochte involved in scandals that played out on social media, where rumors and stories were circulated before they had been fully verified by traditional media outlets. For journalists and broadcasters, social media has changed the way they report on the games. News outlets now compete not just with each other, but also with individuals who can broadcast live or share breaking news in real time. This shift has led to the rise of citizen journalism, where anyone with a smartphone and an internet connection can document and share their own Olympic experiences. While this has made the Games more immediate and accessible, it has also raised questions about the reliability of information and the ethics of reporting. The media's role in shaping the Olympic narrative is also closely tied to the commercialization of the Games. The Olympics have become a massive marketing opportunity, with advertisers eager to capitalize on the global audience the Games attract. The relationship between the Olympics and corporate sponsorship is well established, with major brands like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, and Visa partnering with the International Olympic Committee, IOC, to promote their products to a worldwide market. The influence of sponsors and advertisers is evident in media coverage, with the Games often framed in terms of corporate partnerships, branding, and advertising dollars. This commercialization of the Olympics has led to concerns about the authenticity of the event and whether the focus on corporate sponsorships detracts from the original spirit of the Games. Nevertheless, the Olympics continue to be a platform for both global brands and individual athletes to achieve fame and recognition. The media's role in promoting and branding the Games has ensured that the Olympics remain a cultural touchstone, with the power to influence public opinion, shape global conversations, and even alter perceptions of entire countries. In many ways, the Games have become a reflection of the values and priorities of modern society, an event that not only celebrates human achievement in sport, but also showcases the influence of media, technology, and commerce on our collective consciousness. In conclusion, the media has played a transformative role in shaping the Olympic narrative, turning the Games into a global spectacle that transcends sport. From television broadcasts to the rise of social media, the way the Olympics are presented has evolved in ways that have changed the way people experience and connect with the event. The media shapes the stories of athletes, nations, and the Games themselves, influencing public perception and emotional engagement. As the media landscape continues to evolve, so too will the way the Olympic Games are consumed and understood by audiences around the world. The media's influence on the Olympics is profound, and its role in shaping the narrative will only grow as the Games continue to evolve in the digital age.